What if the feeling of fading away is not an ending, but a signal from your deepest self? And what if that signal is the most important one you'll ever receive? Have you ever looked in a mirror and recognized the person looking back, but felt a million miles away from them? Have you noticed the colors of your world seem just a little less vibrant, the music a little more quiet? The passions that once set your soul on fire now feel like embers cooling in the night. This isn't depression, not in the way we've been taught to understand it. This is something else entirely. This is the beginning of a profound transformation, and what you do next will define everything. We exist in a culture obsessed with constant motion, with curated happiness, and with the performance of having it all together. In this grand theater, the person who starts to disconnect from the script is seen as lost or broken. But what if that disinterest is not a flaw, but a feature? A message from your soul that the path you're on no longer leads to you. Your emptiness is not a void, but a sacred clearing. The great psychologist Carl Jung understood this process intimately. He saw that before a new self can be born, the old one must first be dismantled. This message is for those wandering in the quiet space between who they were and who they are becoming. For those who feel something familiar dying inside, while something new and unknown struggles to take its first breath. You are standing at an invisible threshold, and crossing it will change everything. You can't pinpoint the exact moment it began. You just wake up one day and realize the world feels different. The hobbies that once consumed your weekends now gather dust. The conversations that used to energize you now feel like empty echoes in a large room. And then the quiet, terrifying question surfaces from the depths. What is wrong with me? On the surface, it appears you are losing your spark, your joy, your very self. But beneath the surface, in a place words can't easily reach, a profound shift is occurring. You're being recalibrated. Your soul is tuning to a new frequency, but you're still hearing the static of the old station. This feels like emptiness, but it's not sadness. It feels like distance, but it's not apathy. This is the initial stage of your awakening. Your lack of interest is your inner self demanding authenticity. Jung called this the nigredo, the dark night of the soul, a crucial phase of individuation, the journey toward wholeness. The path to your true self rarely begins with a flash of light. It almost always begins in the quiet, confusing dark. Because before you can find who you are, you must lose who you are not. Imagine a garden that has been left untended for years. It's overgrown with weeds, crowded with plants that no longer bloom. To restore it, you cannot simply add more. You must first clear the space. You pull the weeds, you prune the dead branches. And in that newly cleared earth, you find fertile ground. That is what is happening within you. The emptiness you feel is not a curse. It is a necessary preparation. Your psyche is pulling out the weeds of old identities, of borrowed dreams, of expired attachments. You are not falling apart. You are being prepared. And this is the crucial sign. You begin to lose connection with everything that is out of alignment with the person you are destined to become. Yet, we are conditioned to fear this process. Our society prizes consistency above all. The person who changes is seen as unreliable. The person without a fixed goal is viewed as drifting. But is every crisis a sickness? Or could some be a sacred initiation? Perhaps you are currently crossing a frontier, leaving an old map behind without yet holding a new one. And that is perfectly okay. It is okay to not have the answers. It is okay to sit in the not knowing. True wisdom often lies in allowing the internal reorganization to happen without your conscious interference. Your unconscious mind knows a path your waking self cannot yet see. When the unconscious begins to guide the process, the ego feels threatened. It screams that you are losing control. But perhaps that is precisely what is needed to stop trying to control, to stop pretending you still love what suffocates you, to stop squeezing into a life that is two sizes too small. Yes, it is frightening. There's a deep, silent grief in saying goodbye to a former version of yourself, to dreams you once cherished but no longer serve you. But this grief is not your enemy. It is the compost for what is to come. The philosopher Lao Tzu wrote, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." You are not lost. You are simply shedding an old skin so a truer one can emerge. So the next time you think, "Nothing moves me anymore," pause. Remember, this may not be a crisis. It may be your soul's first act of rebellion. You are not breaking. You are being broken open. And what emerges will be more truly you than anything before. But there is something more perilous than this transformation, the state of stagnation. That silent, desperate place of being constantly busy but never at peace, of always seeking but never finding. This happens when we try to change our external circumstances without first rebuilding the internal architecture that supports our entire being. Real change begins not with doing more, but with allowing the old foundations to crumble. Because sometimes things must fall apart so the truth can finally find a way in. There is a process rooted in ancient wisdom and modern psychology for aligning your thoughts with a clear purpose. It helps ordinary people move from internal chaos to a life of presence and direction. Even if you can't name it, something within you is already shifting. Old attachments are loosening their grip, slipping from your fingers without your permission. You try to hold on. You try to convince yourself that you are still that person, that you still want those things. But a part of you has already moved on. This is where true detachment begins, not as a decision you make, but as a quiet, inevitable unfolding of your spirit. You stand there, watching yourself cease to be who you were, without a blueprint for what comes next. Jung believed that what you do not make conscious becomes your fate, and that is why everything that was too external, too superficial, begins to lose its power over you. You no longer crave the same social scenes. The relationships that once felt vital now seem thin and repetitive. You ask yourself, have I changed too much, or has my world become too small? The answer is both. When you transform internally, the world you built from your former self must inevitably fracture. Not because it was bad, but because it was a temporary shelter. Now your spirit demands a permanent home with deeper foundations. And to build it, you must let go. Let go of ideas that once defined you. Let go of dreams that have finished their purpose. Let go of people who belong to a chapter that is now complete. Letting go is painful not because it was wrong to love, but because it is hard to accept that something was beautiful and is now over. It is natural to resist, to try and rekindle old flames, to revive dead passions. But you soon see it feels forced, artificial. You try to feel the old excitement, but your soul refuses to participate. There's a profound sadness here because you start to understand that detachment is an act of immense bravery. It is a conscious ending. Eastern philosophies teach that suffering stems from clinging. And paradoxically, it is not the letting go that causes the most pain, but our fierce resistance to it. The harder we clutch to what is leaving, the more we exhaust ourselves. It is like trying to hold onto smoke. But when we open our hands, we make room for something new to land. And here is the most challenging part. Detachment is not a rejection. It is not a dismissal or a denial of the past value. It is an act of honoring what was and allowing it to continue on its journey. It is watching a leaf float down a river, knowing its time on your branch has ended. And that is all right. Some people and experiences are meant to be teachers, not lifelong companions. This detachment also turns inward. You begin to notice parts of your own personality that no longer fit. The persona you built to be liked, to fit in, to survive begins to crack. And behind it, you find a face you may not fully recognize, but it is real, and it is tired of performing. This stage, however painful, is holy, because in that scorched earth of your inner world, true freedom is seated. The freedom to stop forcing friendships, to stop pretending to enjoy what you don't, to stop justifying your evolution to anyone. You owe no allegiance to your past selves. They brought you here, but they cannot journey further with you. Jung was certain that the soul always knows its destination, even when the ego is disoriented. And right now, your soul is guiding you toward a more authentic existence. But to get there, it requires you to release all that no longer resonates with your essential frequency. And yes, you will feel alone, because detachment is not just spiritual, it is social. As you change, distances will appear. Some people will depart. Others will accuse you of becoming someone else. You will have to learn to endure being misunderstood. But in the quiet of that solitude, a new clarity will dawn. You are not losing yourself. You're finding yourself. It takes profound maturity to realize that release is also an act of love. Love for your own truth. Love for the freedom that comes from being genuine, even when it costs you old companions and cherished dreams. Detachment is simply creating space for what is meant for you. And the new can only arrive when the old has vacated. So if you feel yourself drifting away from your old life, perhaps it is because you're finally navigating back to your true self. There's a type of silence that can be alarming. A deep, internal quiet that is not the absence of noise, but the absence of striving. You wake up, but feel no urgent pull. The days unfold like blank canvases, and your old motivations seem like a faint rumor. And the inevitable question arises, am I depressed? It is a valid question, but it may not have the answer you expect. We live in an age quick to pathologize. Every emotional state gets a label, a pill, a solution. But sometimes, what looks like a breakdown is the breakdown of the false self. That is why it feels like your world is collapsing, because it is, not in a clinical sense, but in a spiritual one. What you're experiencing may not be depression, but an awakening. Yes, awakening can wear the mask of sadness. It can feel like exhaustion. It can be mistaken for emptiness. But at its core, there's a crucial, subtle difference. Awakening contains a current. Even in stillness, there's a pull, a whisper guiding you not outward but inward. Depression is a cage. It stifles. It silences life. Awakening, in contrast, creates a fertile restlessness, a discomfort that is not a hole, but a space where something new is being assembled. That is the distinction. Carl Jung suggested that within our deepest chaos lies the seed of our rebirth, born from the very turmoil we try to avoid. What you call confusion is not a collapse, but the sacred disorder that comes before a new order is born. When the old self crumbles, the psyche is making room for something greater to rise from the ruins. You are no longer following a script written for you by others. You are remembering the story you were always meant to live. And though this awakening feels like walking through fire, it is the necessary pain of liberation, the soul's way of giving birth to its own light. It is not easy to admit that the dreams that drove you for a decade were planted by someone else, that the relationships you maintained were transactions of convenience, not bonds of spirit, that the ambitions that fueled you were born from fear, not from truth. Seeing this is devastating, but it is also liberation. This is where many people get stuck. They believe they are having a mental health crisis, losing their grip. But it is not your mind that is collapsing. It is your illusions. And when illusions shatter, reality appears, raw, naked, and sometimes painful. You start to see that what you called stability was really a quiet agreement with a life too small. That your previous existence, however comfortable, was a cage for your soul. And then your body responds. Disinterest emerges. Energy wanes, because your entire system is being rewired. It is like a forest after a fire. From the outside, it looks decimated. But underground, the roots are spreading, and the soil is being enriched. When the rains come, new life will sprout. Life that is hardier, more resilient, and more authentic than what was there before. That is what awakening is. A necessary fire of the soul. And what makes it even more challenging is that almost no one speaks of it. You look around and see people who seem happy, productive, and full of purpose. That contrast makes you doubt your own path. But here is the secret. Many of those people are simply acting. They are wearing masks, playing parts, and some of them secretly admire your courage to step into the unknown. Because yes, it takes immense courage to face the void, to look inward without flinching, to question every certainty, and to release the familiar for the sake of what is real. Most people choose distraction. You have chosen awakening. Jung proposed that much of what we call neurosis is a substitute for the legitimate suffering that comes with growth. In other words, when we ignore the soul's call, the body and mind create symptoms, not because we are ill, but because we are resisting our own evolution. You are not sick for feeling tired of the world. You are simply too awake to keep playing the game. And when awareness dawns, it is uncomfortable. Awakening isolates you because you begin to perceive realities others ignore. You lose your tolerance for small talk. You prefer silence over noise, solitude over crowded rooms, not out of misanthropy, but out of a need for integrity. And people will not understand because the world is programmed to live on the surface. But you're diving into the depths. And in that deep dive, you will discover something that cannot be given or taken away. You will find your essence. So, if you feel as though you've lost interest in everything, breathe. Do not run. Do not try to fix it. Do not rush to fill the space. Move through it, because on the other side of this emptiness, you will not find your old self. You will meet a version of you that has never been allowed to exist. And perhaps that unborn version of you is exactly what the world has been waiting for. There comes a moment when the emptiness ceases to feel like a foe and begins to feel like an invitation. Have you sensed it? That almost imperceptible shift when the absence stops aching and starts to feel like a wide-open space. When the silence that once felt like a prison becomes a sanctuary, a blank page, a field of pure potential. It is in that moment that something new stirs within you. It does not arrive with trumpets or dramatic proclamations. It comes as a gentle nudge, a quiet curiosity leading you toward unexplored territories, even before you understand why. A sudden pull to learn a new skill, a desire to feel the earth beneath your feet, a newfound discomfort in situations that once felt normal. You don't know its origin. You only feel its tug. Know this, it is not random. It is life, calling from a most authentic place inside you. Jung taught that what we resist persists, but what we embrace transforms us. And when you stop fighting the emptiness, a miracle occurs. The new begins to find its way to you. That is the purpose of the void. It prepares the ground. What felt like a loss was merely the clearing away of clutter to make room for what truly belongs. It is like trying to paint a masterpiece on a canvas already covered in old, faded images. First, you must clear the surface, prime it anew. Only then can you create your true work. And that is what is happening within you right now. You are becoming someone who can no longer tolerate the inauthentic, who can no longer live to meet external expectations. You're starting to seek the essential, even if you cannot yet give it a name. Maybe for the first time in your life, you're truly learning to listen to the whispers of your own soul. The world will still pressure you to hurry. People will still ask, "Why are you so quiet, so different?" And you might simply reply, "I'm listening to a new song." And it is the truth. That song is the sound of your soul rearranging itself. Your values are taking root. Your spirit is asking for its freedom. Not the freedom to do more, but the freedom to be more real, more present, more whole. This is the most silent and powerful revolution there is, the birth of a new consciousness. And make no mistake, it requires courage. Courage to say no to your former lives. Courage to endure the uncertainty of not yet knowing your new shape. Courage to remain in the quiet while the world screams for your attention. But there is a profound beauty in this process, because each day, a new piece of you is revealed. A subtle insight, a moment of unexpected clarity, a calm determination to follow a path that makes sense to no one but you. You're not behind schedule. You're being called forward. And that call, though quiet, is impossible to ignore because it speaks of a homecoming. Not to a place, not to a group, but to yourself. You're coming home. And perhaps now, the void no longer feels terrifying. It feels sacred. It is a reminder that you are still alive, that something profound within you is finally finding the room to grow. So do not rush to fill it. Breathe into it, because something new, something profoundly and uniquely yours, is ready to be born. And if you have listened this far, you have likely already realized that what felt like an ending was, in its truth, the quiet, magnificent beginning of everything. Losing your connection to the world can feel like a terrifying freefall. I understand. But what if it is the most honest way your soul has of declaring, I will no longer just exist. I am ready to live. Do not rush this metamorphosis. Honor the quiet space. It is holy. Remember this, you are not crumbling. You're breaking open to bloom from within. I recall a specific evening, one that is etched in my memory. Perhaps you have known a night like this. It was late. The world outside was utterly still, but my mind was a storm of unanswerable questions. Why does nothing move me the way it used to? What part of me have I left behind? Am I becoming a stranger to my own life? That night, I didn't need solutions. I didn't need someone to tell me how to feel better. I just needed to hear that this experience was valid, that the emptiness was not a failure, but a necessary, sacred ground. If this message has found that quiet, questioning place within you, then it has served its purpose. Because this channel, Winds of Thought, is not a performance. It is a sanctuary, a place of refuge for those who are tired of pretending to be okay and are ready to discover the profound strength in being authentic. If these words met you where you are, I invite you to share in the comments. Tell me, even in a single phrase, what old version of yourself are you finally releasing? And what new possibility do you feel stirring within? And if you're not yet subscribed, perhaps now is the moment. Not out of duty, but because this might be the one space where your transformation is not seen as a problem to be solved, but as a courage to be celebrated. Please like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to Winds of Thought. Or simply sit with what you've felt. That is enough. And if you feel the call to go deeper, the videos you see now on your screen did not appear by chance. One of them may hold a key to a door you didn't even know was waiting to be unlocked. Go, but go gently. Something within you is beginning to flower.